I'm gonna take this leaf and I'm gonna cut off some of the surface area. Number one, it will grow from the base here, so it will root, and simultaneously little babies will sprout from where it roots. Hey you guys, welcome to a Begonia episode. If you're new to the channel, my name is Sean and I'm a houseplant enthusiast from Jakarta, Indonesia. And this is actually one of my first Rex Begonia episodes in a long time. I did the black, was it Mamba or something a while ago. That was a much easier Begonia to propagate and to take care of. And this is a beautiful Begonia. It's got like super complex colors, it's got complex patterns. I don't really have the words to describe it. So I'm gonna show some B-rolls on the screen so you can appreciate some of the details. And I noticed that with begonias, they kind of come in trends because sometimes we see many shops selling the same type of begonias and then we don't see them a year later. We see like a new variety come out. So here in Indonesia, the begonias really do come and go, and if you see something you like, you gotta kind of grab it before it goes out of style. But this one here is a little bit more challenging based on my care style and also my environment. Now, there are a lot of begonia hybrids in the world. I don't know the name of this exact one, but they seem to thrive overseas better than in Indonesia because these guys can rot very, very easily. So the way that I care for this guy is one, bright indirect light. They can handle kind of a medium light, although they will exfoliate. They will look really, really terrible. The colors may even dull. But the most important thing is their potting media. Here we have to give them something very, very airy, very, very fast drying. And they want to be constantly moist, but then like not super soggy and not sopping wet. I know that overseas, I read a lot of care tips that you guys don't let your begonias dry out, that they're quite moisture loving. I found that to be untrue here in a high humidity climate. They do rot very, very often. And also, air movement helps a lot. When you grow these indoors, you really want to back away with watering. They do really thrive better when you have like a fan on, or when you grow them outside on a balcony where it's a little bit breezy. But again, the care style for indoor and outdoors and also in a lower humidity climate is very, very different. In a lower humidity climate, I might probably let this be a little bit more moist. I might have a denser potting media. And I've seen these guys grow on anything, like they've grown on rocks and things like that. Usually the begonia hybrids tend to be a little bit more stronger and more adaptive than the species, because the species are found, for example, in a specific side of a cave entrance, and that's where you find them, and then you move them anywhere else, they just don't make it. So a lot of the hybrids just seem to be the ones that are selected. You know, you cross two kinds of begonias together and you have like hundreds of babies, and the ones that are the most beautiful and the ones that are strongest usually make it into our collection. I know that the USA, you guys enjoy a lot of beautiful begonia hybrids because you guys have some of the best hybridizers over there, and sometimes they do make it here in Indonesia, but we don't really have strong hybridizers of begonias in Asia, at least not that I've encountered any. But if you are, do comment down below and let me know. Perhaps I could give them a visit and give them a bit of spotlight. But this begonia in my hand is about 6 months old. It grew quite a bit in my care. And the problem with this begonia now, and why we're working on it, is number one, I do want to make a video on this and I want to propagate this and I want to show you how it's done. But also, it's like, what do you call it? It's like overtaken the pot. So every time we hose down our plants, because we do hose down our plants every single day, the water just runs off from the leaf and the potting media gets dry. So you see some crisping on the begonias, because I did notice that on a few days on end, this plant will be bone dry and they really, really don't like that. So I might do something about it. Honestly, I think the pot is a little bit too big also for a begonia this size. So without further ado, let's go and dissect this plant. Oh, and one more thing, begonias, they hate being repotted. They really do. If you see like all of these like fine roots, they take a while to get adhere to something and they really don't want to be disturbed. So I might not actually disturb this much at all, but I just wanted to see what it looks like inside, and I see some mealybugs here. So I might give it a bit of a pest control. And then with a leaf like this is like not doing so well. This one leaf, there's like some tear and some damage here. Now, I'm gonna try something. The success rate when you take off like a sick leaf is quite low, but I'm gonna take this leaf and I'm gonna cut cut off some of the surface area, and then I'm gonna just leave like a little bit like this, and I'm gonna just put it in water. Oh, I'm gonna cut this a bit too. Now, the anatomy of the begonia is, this is a Rex type begonia. If you can see, the internodes are actually very, very short in between the nodes. Now, when you cut a stem like this without part of the main stem, it can grow multiple babies out of it. Number one, it will grow from the base here, so it will root, and simultaneously little babies will sprout from where it roots. And it can also come out from each veins like this. We're gonna do one with the veins later on, but because again, this is like a damaged leaf, I might opt to put this in water like that. So it's gonna be a water propagation. Okay, so basically I ran this through like an open flame to just burn the shears. And actually another way that we can propagate this is to just take a main stem here, cut it, and you can propagate it in soil or in water. That's the surefire way because the main stem here is the most viable. But we're not gonna do that today because when you cut the main stem off, as you can see here, this is trying to sprout a new baby leaf. If we cut that off, this baby leaf will come along with it. And I see another baby leaf here that's coming out. So this is actually doing quite okay, this plant. I'm gonna see where I can sneak another leaf cutting. I'm gonna take another one. I might do this one here. Now I have like a used Tupperware. This used to be for salads and it's got a cover. And then I'm gonna take moss. Now you're supposed to shred them, soak them in water, press all the water out. I've never really done it. That's you can follow me, you can just go gung-ho on it, or you can also soak all this in water and then squeeze all that water out and leave it like nice and shredded, but a little bit moist. Make a nice bed right here for our begonia to lay on. And then I've got some water. This is good old tap water. You don't have to spray a lot, just a little bit. Now, let's inspect the leaves. The leaves seem to be in pretty good shape. It is very curly though, so might be a little bit difficult to work with a curly leaf. Now I'm gonna cut this a little bit shorter. I might have forgot to tell you why we cut it this short. No matter how short we cut it, roots are gonna emerge here and little babies are gonna emerge. When you have a longer petiole here, there's a lot of energy transfer between the leaf and the base. So you have like a less efficient cutting, in my opinion. So I prefer to cut it like as short as I can. And then with this one cutting, you can slice the veins. I'm gonna do this. You can slice the veins right here, and usually I'm just gonna press it against like one finger and a knife. Press it. Be careful, don't cut your fingers, ladies and gentlemen. And a baby should appear from the incision. Make sure you have something sharp. I kind of hesitated. As you can see here, I created like a wound that is like not very sharp. I have a feeling that might be detrimental to the cutting. Use something sharp and don't hesitate. Cut with determination and confidence, like that. Okay, I'm gonna slice all around, slice it all the way around. Okay. Now that I've done my slices, I'm just gonna lay this on that bed of moss. And then let me tell you, I'm just gonna close this up. Remember that we watered just a little bit. We don't want this to be sitting in water. We want this to be like very, very humid inside because all that moisture that we had earlier will evaporate. So we want to see some kind of a dew situation. We want to see some condensation on the surface of this container. But we don't want this to be sitting in water. It will rot the begonia. From now on, it's a game of like keeping it humid and trying to keep the vein cuts that we did earlier to be as much in contact as the moss as possible, although it don't have to. It can absolutely extract humidity from the air and root and sprout the babies that way. And also, some people swear by using perlite as well. Feel free to use perlite. And I almost never water this. If I see that it's dry, the condensation doesn't appear anymore, I would give it a nice little spritz. And I do not fertilize this. I also don't do any pest control, although you can probably put a bit of pesticide in here, a systemic pesticide, to make sure that there's nothing living in this leaf. But the most important thing is put this in a cool and very, very bright area, bright indirect light with no direct sunlight at all. And the coolness will also help it along. They will appreciate it more than if you put it in somewhere hot and stuffy where it might just cook, if you know what I mean. All right, I'm just gonna do one more. I might do one more. You know what I'm gonna do is, there's actually two vines coming off. I don't know if you can see this one here and another one coming off this side. And usually if you cut one vine off, sometimes it will sprout a few new vines from below. So if you want it to be bushier sometimes, you can absolutely cut back your begonias. I want to take one more leaf, but I don't see any more viable or interesting leaves that I can take. This is still too young to be taken. I mean, this leaf is gorgeous. This is like perfectly beautiful. I don't want to take it off yet. You know what, I might take this like kind of young leaf off. Just this one. It's not fully formed yet, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna also put this with this together in a water propagation. This is pretty high stakes propagation. Usually I have a few cuttings going, but in this case, we only have like this and the water propagation. So let's hope that I don't kill this. And I'm gonna show you guys a few months update. I'll see you guys later. It's actually 10 weeks later, and I had made a mistake. I forgot to tell my gardener that we're filming this begonia episode. So the one that we propagated in water, he actually potted it up. But good news is, you can tell that from here, there are some baby vines that's coming out. So this must have rooted quite well, and now it's pushing out all these wonderful growth over here. Now, I don't want to disturb this. Normally, I would take this out and check the roots, but I really want to back away from that. And for water propagation, you do want to keep this a little bit wet for a while and then back off with watering over time because the plant is used to being in water. And next up here, this is the one that we grew in a Tupperware. Look at all these baby vines that is coming out from here. So each of these represents one full new plant. So I guess what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait for these to develop a little bit bigger, and then I will start to separate them and pot them up separately. But for now, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grow them without this top because I want it to get used to regular humidity on the outside. So on the last few days, I've actually started to keep it open a little bit, let some air in, and now I think I'm ready to just let it live out. So this is grown in my medium to bright indirect light room with air conditioning, and they really do like it when you give it a bit of a cooler temperature. All right, welcome to an 8 weeks update. And if you guys look at my back wall, it's looking a lot better. So about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I kind of spruced it up because there was a plant event and I had a lot of international guests come in. So it's now looking really nice, and I hope to constantly evolve with the wall and kind of style with it, and obviously it'll be a nice background for us to have. And I'm just looking around because I just got back from like 4 weeks almost in Bangkok, and things are exploded in growth. Look at this one here. This is the Florida bronze. It was so small when I left and it's now gotten so big. I do have a secret. I'm going to be creating another video for a potting mix recipe that's awesome, and I think this is one that maybe most of you can replicate at home, hopefully. So maybe that'll be helpful. But I am still in the final process of experimenting with it. I'm starting to add like mycorrhiza and trichoderma into the potting medium. And I'm also using ecoenzyme to ferment the media a bit. So this increases the nutrition absorption of the plants and also helps keep the general condition of the soil, the bacteria, the fungus, everything in balance, and also help increase the uptake of nutrients. So I know it's not for this video, but just so you guys know, there will be a video on potting mix. I'm seeing really like an explosion of growth. I mean, for the past 4 or 5 years with my channel, I've noticed really good result with my potting mix. But this one just takes it to a whole new level. So I cannot wait to show it with you maybe in a few months' time. But sorry, back to this update here. So this is an 8 weeks update from what we did before. So I think that's around 18 weeks, if I'm not wrong, of the total propagation. So obviously this one has been doing quite well. It's just putting out growth after growth. In fact, I'm seeing 2 different growth points here. So I'm gonna leave this as it is. Although I must say, I might wanna give it a little bit more light. The leaves are not sizing up as much as I would like to. I do give it slow release fertilizer, so it maybe just needs a bit more light. And then let's look at the mother plant. And here is the parent plant. It's living in my backyard garden area that is grounded. Let me stand up and show you the whole garden. It actually looks nice so when you actually stand up a bit. I do have to fill up this patch, but we often step on this to get to the other plants, so maybe not quite yet. So this was moved around a month and a half ago, I would say. So a lot of the plants here are still rehabilitating, but this will be a nice little garden area to enjoy some plants. So I arranged them based on color. There's a bit of symmetry. If you can see here, the orbifolia contrasting with the Cyanastrum cordifolium. And there's a Maranta here. Yeah, that one did not make it. So I had 2 different types of Maranta. So they're kind of symmetrical, but not quite. So yeah, that's my back garden area, which we might see more of in the future when it looks better. But we actually spent a few hours to look for this plant. We couldn't find it in the pot, and we realized that we had grounded it. We have over like 1,000 plants here, so sometimes we're not aware of where everything is. But this is the original leaf, there's the original vine here, and this one is pushing out a new baby, and this is also pushing out a new baby. So I assume that this area might actually bush out a bit. I'm assuming maybe in about 2 months' time. All right, but last but not least, this is sort of the important one. So this one obviously sprouted a lot of leaves, a lot of babies. So what I'm gonna do today is, I'm gonna take it out for the first time. There's a bunch of roots going around. And then I'm gonna be separating them. I see that the main leaf that we cut from has completely disintegrated. These are, just kind of dried off. So the babies have kind of fed on them for a while. And I'm gonna just start separating them. Ooh, let me see if I can do it without. I might have damaged some roots, but it came off quite easily. But this one came with almost no roots. So what I'm gonna do if I have a cutting like this with almost no roots, I do see a little bit, is I'm gonna pot this up, and then I'm gonna use an inverted cup to kind of increase humidity, because the humidity will, 1, prevent water loss from the leaves, but also it will encourage the plant to root. But keep in mind, in that contraption, then you don't want the potting media to be too wet, because you want to rely on the ambient humidity to hydrate the plant. So yeah, this is the potting media that I've kind of been working with, that I have a lot of success with. All right, for this one, I'm just gonna give it a tiny, tiny pot. There you go, pot it up. I'm not even gonna do another update video because I think this is gonna take off just fine. And then I'm gonna add slow release fertilizer, tiny amount. It's a small plant, you don't want to overwhelm it. And maybe a touch of pesticide. I use carbofuran, not super proud of it, but just a tiny, tiny dose of it. And then I'm gonna cover that. Let me show you what that looks like. It will probably look something like this. Back in my air-conditioned room. So this plant will, ooh, come on, it's being a bit rowdy. So this plant will have really, really high humidity, and then slowly over time, I might tilt it a bit to open up humidity. But the current state of this plant is it does need to root, because I did lose some roots from yanking it. Not too hard, I don't know, it just didn't come along with the plant. Now the bigger ones is what I'm really concerned with. I might not even repot most of this. Okay, let me take off the dead parent leaf, because I see that it's doing so well in here. Yeah, if I pulled this, it might lose a lot of roots. So there's another way I could go around with this plant. Can you guess what it is? So I'm gonna just basically plant the whole thing in this pot. Does it make sense? I don't know, it makes sense to me. So, and I'm gonna fluff a little bit here, add the sphagnum moss a bit, but keep in mind with the begonias, when you have something dense like the sphagnum moss, and when you water it violently, you can kind of waterlog the plant, and it hates that. But begonias need a bit of a drying out period in my climate, because it's quite humid. But of course, if you live in a drier climate, maybe you might not want to let your begonias dry out completely or for too long of a period. The care I've noticed, especially for begonias, are quite different depending on where you live. Unlike your aroids like monsteras and philodendron where they're a little bit more tolerant. So yeah, I guess I have all these to work with. I'm gonna end this video now because I do have other projects to get to. So I wanna thank you guys for watching this all the way to the very end. Stay tuned for this potting media episode. It's gonna be so wild. I'm excited to show you how this has really helped my garden. Just by you watching this all the way to the very end, it's more than I can ask from most of you. But if you have the means to donate to the channel financially, you can join as a YouTube member. Simply open any OnlyPlants episode from a desktop, and then next to my channel name, you will see the join button. That's for as much as a cup of coffee a month. Or you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/Sean from OnlyPlants. And I wanna wish you guys all a happy week ahead, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.